The Beaches podcast is going to give you everything you want to know about a beach before you go there. I hope you enjoy the show. Be sure to check out our website, www.sandee.com. Without further ado, let's get into the show.
All right, everyone, get ready, because today we are diving deep, literally, into one of the most incredible natural wonders on our planet.
That's right. We're talking about the Great Barrier Reef.
The Great Barrier Reef. When I say that, what's the first thing that pops into your head?
Well, I immediately think of vibrantly colored coral. I think of fish, sharks, turtles, just this huge underwater world.
It's enormous.
Right?
It's huge. Like, it's seriously massive. I mean, we're talking over 2,300 kilometers of coastline.
Wow.
It's actually, like, you can see it from space. That's how big it is.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
So like you were saying, it's not just coral, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
It's this unbelievably diverse ecosystem. I mean, you've got over 1,500 species of fish.
Wow.
6 of the 7 species of sea turtles call it home. Different types of sharks, dolphins, whales.
What kind of whales?
You can even see dwarf minke whales there.
Dwarf minke whales.
They migrate there. Yeah, it's incredible.
Wow. I've never heard of those.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Okay, so I'm already feeling overwhelmed. If I wanted to plan a trip, where do I even begin?
Well, first things first, are you an experienced diver?
I've been a couple of times.
Okay, so maybe not an expert.
No, not an expert. I wouldn't say expert.
That's fine. There are options for every experience level on the Great Barrier Reef. If you're not certified to scuba dive, no problem.
So I could still see some cool stuff just snorkeling.
Absolutely. Snorkeling is a fantastic way to experience the reefs that are closer to the surface. You'll still see a ton of colorful fish, maybe even a turtle or two if you're lucky.
What about those dwarf minke whales you mentioned? They hang out near the surface, right?
Well, you'd need a bit more luck to spot those while snorkeling. They tend to stick to deeper waters. But if you're set on seeing them, there are boat tours specifically for whale watching.
Okay, that's good to know. So let's say I've got my heart set on scuba diving. Anything I should keep in mind when choosing a tour operator?
Absolutely. This is crucial. You want to go with an operator who's committed to sustainable and responsible tourism. The Great Barrier Reef is facing a lot of environmental challenges, so minimizing our impact as visitors is paramount.
Right. We have to protect this incredible place.
Exactly. So look for operators who are certified by organizations like Ecotourism Australia.
What do those certifications tell me about the operator?
They indicate that the operator follows strict guidelines to minimize their environmental footprint. Things like using mooring buoys instead of anchors to avoid damaging the coral, limiting group sizes to reduce stress on the ecosystem, and educating divers on responsible practices.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not just about seeing the reef, it's about protecting it too.
Exactly. It's about ensuring that this natural wonder is around for generations to come, and a big part of that is understanding what we're looking at when we're down there.
So what exactly is coral?
So coral, it looks like a rock, right?
It does.
It feels like a rock.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, coral is actually alive. It's an animal.
An animal, you're kidding.
No kidding. Coral is made up of these tiny creatures called polyps. Think of them like miniature anemones with tentacles they use to catch food.
Okay, so if they're animals, how do they make those huge structures, those reefs?
Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting. These polyps, they actually secrete calcium carbonate, which is essentially limestone. And over time, as they grow and multiply, these limestone skeletons build up layer upon layer, and that's what forms the structure of the reef.
So it's like they're building their own apartment complexes.
Exactly. And these apartment complexes are incredibly important. They provide shelter and food for this incredible diversity of marine life. You've got fish, crabs, lobsters, octopuses, sharks. It's an entire ecosystem.
It's mind-blowing. You've got these tiny little creatures building this gigantic, vibrant underwater world. And we've touched on this a bit already, but it's so important for us to be aware of the threats it faces, right?
Absolutely. The Great Barrier Reef, like so many coral reefs around the world, is facing numerous threats, the biggest one being climate change. As ocean temperatures rise, it causes something called coral bleaching.
I've heard of that, but I'm not entirely sure what it is. Can you explain?
Sure. So coral polyps, they have a symbiotic relationship with tiny algae that live inside their tissues. These algae, they're photosynthetic, meaning they make food from sunlight, just like plants.
Right, and they give the coral its color.
Exactly. But when the water gets too warm, these algae get stressed out and they produce toxins. The coral, in an attempt to protect itself, expels the algae, leaving the coral a bleached white color.
So it's like The coral is evicting its roommate.
In a way, yeah. And while coral can recover from bleaching if the water cools down, repeated bleaching events can weaken the coral and eventually kill it.
That's really worrying.
It is. And on top of that, we've got pollution from runoff, plastic debris, and even destructive fishing practices that damage the reef.
It's like death by 1,000 cuts. So how do we, as visitors who clearly love this natural wonder, make sure that we're not contributing to the problem?
It starts with simple things. First and foremost, if you're diving or snorkeling, perfect your buoyancy control. You don't want to be accidentally kicking or touching the coral.
That makes sense.
Even a slight brush can damage those delicate polyps. And remember what we said about coral polyps building those structures?
Yeah, it takes a long time.
A really long time. So even if it seems like a tiny touch, it can have a big impact. And speaking of impact, let's talk sunscreen.
Ah, yes, the sunscreen debate.
It's important. Many sunscreens contain chemicals that can actually harm coral.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously. So look for reef-safe sunscreen. It's widely available these days and just as effective at protecting your skin without harming the coral.
Okay, that's an easy swap. Reef-safe sunscreen, got it. What else?
And lastly, just remember to be respectful. Observe the marine life. Admire it, take pictures, but don't touch, chase, or harass any of the animals.
It's like we're visiting a foreign country, right?
Yeah.
Be respectful of the locals.
Exactly. They're there to stay, and we're just visitors in their home.
This has been an amazing deep dive, honestly. From those tiny little polyps to those giant dwarf minke whales. It's incredible what's happening below the surface.
It truly is, and it's on us to protect it.
Absolutely. So for everyone listening, if you get the chance to experience the Great Barrier Reef, do it. But do it responsibly and spread the word. Let's keep this underwater world thriving.
I couldn't agree more.
Until next time, happy diving.
Thanks for listening to the show, and be sure to tune in next week for your favorite episode about some of the best beaches and beach information in the world.